How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to episode 4 of the Sickest Podcast with your host, That Leafs Fan. I hope you guys are doing well. We're going to be getting into some Habs Leafs game reviews. We're going to be talking about some contracts signed around the league and my thoughts on it. And we're going to finish it off with a little bit of a wholesome moment. But I hope you guys are ready. Before getting into this one, just wanted to take a moment to say thank you guys once again so much for the support you guys have shown so far. We hit over 20 likes on a recent podcast, which may not seem like a lot to you guys, but to me, it means one hell of a lot. And hopefully this time, let's aim for a little more than that. But regardless, I hope you guys are ready for today. Hope you're excited for it. Producer, roll the tape.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With That Leafs Fan.
They score! They score! Holy mackerel, they score! Morgan Riley! Mo Riley! The Leafs have won it! They're going to the second round! Do you believe this? Holy mackerel!
The sickest Toronto Maple Leafs podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 4 with your host, That Leafs Fan, the Sickest Leafs podcast. We got a couple games to talk about between the Habs and the Leafs, 3 preseason mini-series, if you want to call it. We're going to be also, like I said, covering a little contract signing in the league that I kind of thought looked really good off the start, but also doesn't exactly have the highest potential, at least for the team that signed it, in the near future. And once again, going to be ending it off with a wholesome little moment that I thought was really nice for the league. But let's talk about the Leafs and Habs 3 preseason encounters, starting off with game number 1. So in this one, the Habs and Leafs both not starting their complete rosters. They're starting more of, if you want to call it, the AHL lineup, where there's playing a bunch of players who are still fighting for their spots in the team, fighting to make an impression on the coaches, on the staff, and all of that. So it wasn't the most, if you want to call it, clean game. It was a lot more of battles and players really trying to make the mark. Notable players for the Leafs in this one starting, Matthew Knies, and there was, I believe, Bertuzzi showed up in this one. There was a few. As well for the Habs, there was a couple players overall, but again, not the teams we're used to seeing for a regular game. But it was overall seeing the Habs and Leafs start in this one. It was nice to see. I mean, as a Leafs fan, watching Habs versus Leafs, whether it's the preseason, the season, the playoffs, wherever it is, it's always fun to watch. And there's always going to be banter between the both of us, which is something I'm going to get to later. But in this one, the Toronto Maple Leafs actually get a nice start, heading up 1-2-0 with a lead in this game. Matthew Knies, honestly, I think that is basically all I need to talk about in this game because, again, the result doesn't entirely matter. Matthew Knies looked like the standout Leaf in this game, and it was not entirely close. The kid was all over the ice. The kid was finishing checks. He was setting up plays. He was the one that I watched this entire game and, without even checking out my notes of the game, I just remember Matthew Knies is what I need to talk about for game number 1. He had a fantastic performance, and he's been one of the only Leafs who's actually showed up in every single one of the preseason games. And in this 3-game series, it was no different. He showed up in each and every single one of them, whether it was the AHL lineup playing, whether it was the NHL lineup playing. Matthew Knies was a part of it, and he was a huge role in carrying the Leafs to a 2-1 victory in game number 1. Something I did want to touch on is the fact that Josh Anderson makes it 2-1 late in the game. That, again, the result doesn't exactly matter. Something I really want to talk about, why does Josh Anderson hate the Leafs so much? This guy only shows up to play against the Leafs. Any other team, I swear to God, this is Josh Anderson showed up for one of his 7 games this season. You're going to see it. When he plays the Leafs, Josh Anderson is just a god. Hab fans, any of you guys care to explain where does he go when they're not playing the Leafs? Where is he? I actually do not know, to be completely frank with you. But when he plays the Leafs, he's always there. Physical. He has an insane shot when he decides to use it. And he's just a lead killer. What's that all about? I don't see him doing this against the Sabres, against the Red Wings, against the Bruins. who should very well be another notable rival that he just does not show up in. But against the Leafs, he's always there. He's just there to piss me off. I'm like, Josh Anderson's on the ice. Great. This guy's an absolute tool for the rest of the season. But tonight, he's just going to turn into like Connor McDavid's second, whatever you want to call it, the second, how do you say that? Like when you're the second coming of Jesus. That's what I meant. Like he just shows up and he's just dominant. And I don't know, that really pissed me off. I remember that note from game number 1. Luckily, if I recall correctly, I don't believe he played game number 2. And let's get on to game number 2. Although, once again, not the most exciting of games by any means if you're watching it from the TV, but luckily, I actually got to go and watch this one in person. Brought the girlfriend over to watch, showed her some of the new action of the season, so it was pretty fun. Something I definitely want to talk about before getting into the game recap. Can we take a moment to just talk about the concessions in an arena? Like, it's actually insane. So I show up to the game. Obviously, you want to maybe have like a beer, have a hot dog, whatever, just gear up for the game. Like, the fans have like a pregame of our own. We're not exactly warming up, ripping wristers top corner in the nets just to warm up the wrist, but we got to be dialed. We got to be comfortable. We can't be hungry during the game, can't be thirsty, because you want to have all that taken care of before the game starts. And where do you go to take care of that? The concession stand. The problem is, I went to the concession stand. Girlfriend wanted a poutine? No problem. Let's get a poutine. We wanted to get a beer? Let's get a beer. But you know what? We should also be careful and stay hydrated. So let's have a bottle of water. Yes, please. Can I have a bottle of water? How much is that going to be? Oh, that's going to be $5.75. And I looked at the girl working there, and I know it's not her fault. She's not the one who decided the prices. She's just simply doing her job. But whoever is responsible for making a water bottle, one regular bottle, like a regular water bottle, $5.75. What are you, nuts? I can buy a case of water of like 24 for less than that. You're going to charge me $5.75 for one bottle? So I looked at her and I'm like, look, I'm sorry. That's insane. I ain't doing it. So the girl's actually really nice enough to give us a like plastic cup, whatever, and she filled it up with water. Left her a tip, said thank you very much for not absolutely shafting me for some H2O, a basic necessity for the human race. So luckily, we ended up getting the water, and I ended up saving $6, which was nice. And then we go and watch the game. So game number 2, once again, this time looking a little bit different. The Habs starting, I don't want to say their full roster, but many more NHL-ready players. Like Caulfield was in there, Suzuki was in there. They had Gouli, they had Xhekaj was playing. Like a lot of their main team players showed up in this one. But as for the Leafs, unfortunately, as much as I wanted to see Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and all of them, none of them played in this one. Notable Leafs were Matthew Knies, Morgan Riley. There was Martin Jones, who had a stellar game, by the way, in game number 2. Wow. Stellar. Don't know where he came from. We're probably going to lose him through waivers, but I'll get to that later. Other than that, there was Nick Robertson, Fraser Minton, but again, like these are not full-time roster players aside of Matthew Knies and Riley. And so I'm heading into this game like, great, finally a pair of tickets I can afford because it's the preseason and the tickets ain't $300 for nosebleeds. And we're going to get absolutely decked. Like, as a Leafs fan, I got there, I'm looking at all the Habs fans around me. I'm like, this is not going to be fun for me. And I just went into the game. I'm like, you know what? It's fine. It's the preseason. Doesn't exactly entirely matter. Thing is with Leafs and Habs fans, and like to any Leaf and Habs fans watching this, matter of fact, diehard fans of any sport, we all have our rivals. The game doesn't need to mean anything like in this, like for the season. It doesn't have to be played for points. These types of games are simply there to have like banter advantage. Like if the Leafs win this game, I'm definitely going to be talking about it. I'm going to be making jokes to the Habs friends like, guys, what happened? And if the Habs win, same thing coming to me, which is, again, another thing I'm going to get to. But let's get to the game. Game number 2, the Toronto Maple Leafs starting their AHL team. Habs starting not their entire full roster, but a lot more main roster players showing up in this one. And the Habs come out flying from the gate. We are getting absolutely dominated by the Habs. But Martin Jones, a guy signed league min, just making 10 bell saves. It was great. I looked over at my girlfriend, and she's like someone who's not like a diehard fan. Like, she'll actually watch the game and see it for what it is, not like with the fandom of a team, like those goggles. Like, I'm a Leafs fan, so I'm gonna be super biased when I'm seeing types of stuff like that. I'll be like, oh, he's not having a good game, but like I know what he's capable of, so like let me not get too into that. She'll say straight up, like, this guy's playing absolutely awful, and that guy's good. So she watched the game and she's like, I've never seen that goalie before, but like he is the only reason you guys are not losing. And I looked at her and I'm like, yeah. Sounds about right, to be completely fair with you. The Habs came out the gate, I think, with like 17 shots, and the Leafs had like 5. But the Leafs take the lead. Guess who? Matthew Knies. Taking the puck against 3 different Hab players, finding his way around, wrap around, boom, 1-0 Toronto. You'll love to see it. And I'm just there. I'm like, well, this might not be as bad as I thought. And then the Habs keep putting on the pressure. They keep putting on the pressure. And so obviously the Leafs make it 2-3-0. Like, what? We're getting completely dominated in this game. We are getting absolutely rinsed in our own zone. We're taking penalties too, like in the meanwhile. We're the ones scoring. I just don't get it. And what I thought about to myself, like when I was seeing this happen, I'm like, how is it possible that we have a team of basically completely dry of our real NHL regulars versus a team who's starting players who are going to be playing for them this season, like the entire season, like full-time roster players, and we're just winning this game. So I thought, I looked kind of back at it and I was like looking at the style of play of the Leafs and I'm like, I can't exactly tell who's having a good game, but like the overall team itself just has like a good pace to it. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, a lot of these players, especially like on the Leafs roster, like this particular night, are players who do not have a spot on the lineup. They are very much in a dogfight to make it. Like the first, second, third, fourth line offense and the first, second, third line defense, other than like, again, the main roster players, these guys are all there. Like, this is their season. Like, this is their chance to like leave a mark in the coach's mind. Like, let's say someone gets hurt in the season. Like, who are we going to call up? Oh, I remember this kid had a pretty damn good preseason. Like, he was pretty effective in the game. And so like these types of players, they're very important games for them, like very, very important games for them. And I think that's why, despite not having the team that we normally have, Toronto still managed to like have a good game out of this one. And they were like fighting for the game, regardless whether for me it was meaningless or for you watching the game was meaningless, which it was. It doesn't result to anything. For these players, these games mean a lot to them, and it's very important to them. So it was really fun to see. And this goes for like both ends of both different teams. It just so happened again that the Leafs, most of their team was filled with guys fighting for, they were basically fighting to make an impression, to leave a lasting impression, like on the GM or the coach or whoever's the one making the lineup decisions. So it was really fun to see for that. Leafs end up walking out of this one winning 3-1. No clue how. Did the Leafs deserve to win this one? Probably not. But they held the fort in the first period, Martin Jones notably. And then the game kind of evened out through there, and it just kind of came a little too late. And by the time ran out, Leafs had 3, Habs had 1. Leafs win. You'll love to see it. And coming back to what I said before in terms of the rivalry, like we're talking about 2 franchises who have been here like legit longer than the league. Like the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens have existed for like longer than the NHL. Like it sounds nuts. Like these were like the first teams created. So with a lot of time and history comes the chance to develop, I don't know if you want to call it hatred, but let's call it like sports. Let's call it a rivalry. That's what it is. It's a rivalry. So even if this game meant absolutely nothing, obviously I'm walking out of the arena. Me and my girlfriend are wearing our Leafs jerseys, classic, in Montreal. And tons of people just walking up to me, making jokes about 67, making jokes. It was 3-1. And I'm like, yeah, but like this game, at least it stayed 3-1, but we're going to get to that. There's a pun that's going to come at some point in this episode regarding game number 3, where it was 3-1 and then it wasn't. But we'll get to that. Let me just have my little moment of joy talking about the time we won the game. And I was actually there, thank God. But yeah, overall, it's crazy to me. And it's really fun to see that even in games that don't exactly mean anything in terms of the season, like whoever won this game, it could have been like 14-1 for either the Habs or the Leafs. And it's like, it doesn't make a difference. It really doesn't. Like, it's not going to, the season starts next Wednesday. It's not very important, but like we're fans, right? A game is a game. And if there's a result to talk about, we're going to talk about it. That's just how it is. And it was really fun to see, like, it actually, like, kind of made me smile, like, seeing people coming through, making some jokes, but then, like, being like, nah, I'm just kidding. There was one particular moment that I do remember after the game. There was, like, a few people coming up to me and being like, hey, man, I enjoy your videos. And I know you're wearing the wrong jersey, but a good game and all that. But there was one particular old guy who walks up to me out of nowhere. Like, I'm not even paying attention. I'm just trying to, like, navigate our way out of the arena. And this guy walks up to me, like this close. Like, he is like here to me, okay? He's like walking on the side, and he just decides to honk a little horn in my face with like the biggest smile on his face you've ever seen. Like, to those listening on Spotify, you probably can't see my well, you don't see my face right now, but this guy had like a smile. It was like a reverse rainbow. Like, it was huge. And he's just like, hey, big, 1967. And I'm just looking at him. I'm like, how are you chirping me? Like, first of all, again, it's the preseason. Like, the chirps, I guess, some people like it, some people don't. Like, this early on, like, some people are always gonna take advantage of the opportunities they have. But his team lost tonight, and it was just like he was mad that I was wearing a Leafs jersey. So I loved it. It was on it. Like, I remembered, like, thinking back on it, it makes me smile. Like, it's what it's all about at the end of the day. I mean, you know, like, we're paying like what, some of these tickets are like $50, $100, $150, $200, depending where you were sitting. So, like, you know what? If you're going to be there, have your fun with it. If this made that guy's night better, you know what? All power to you, even though, in my opinion, you're cheering for the wrong team, but that's definitely an arguable one. Anyways, so the Leafs win game number 2, 3-1. And now there's a one-day break. We head back to Toronto to finish off the series, preseason series, between the Leafs and the Habs. And in this one, it starts off much better. First of all, both teams are starting their full rosters. Well, their stars are playing, like Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and for the Habs, like Suzuki, Caulfield, and Doc and Slavkovsky. Like, everyone's in this game. So, like, obviously, off the gates, you're like, this game's going to be fun. This game's going to be intense. And to be fair, much more physical game, I noticed. Like, there was actually, like, some hits being thrown around. There was a lot of, like, post-whistle scraps behind the net, like pushing and shoving and all that, and like some penalties resulting from it. No, like, distinct fights, like no one dropped the gloves or none of that. And to be honest, I don't think it's a good idea to drop the gloves in the preseason. Like, God forbid, like, you know, like, you see one of your starting defensemen, like, and Ryan Reeves, let's say Ryan Reeves and Arbor Xhekaj had a bout in this one. It's like, I'd much rather you keep that for game 1 of the season. I like to see that you guys are not getting along. It's going to make for some fun hockey to watch when the games actually start to matter. But to actually have a full-on fight in this one, I don't see the point of it. I mean, you risk injury. It's the preseason. Like, there's just, I enjoy the energy, but there's no point to have a fight. And there is no fight that ended up happening. So I was happy to see it. It was again a good aggressive game. But just like they managed to, like, respect the boundaries of, like, this game doesn't actually have a whole lot of meaning to it, especially that most of, again, the teams are, like, kind of pretty much set. There's, like, a few games left in the preseason. So, like, the teams know who they're going to be playing, who they're not. And there might be, like, a few games left for players to have to, like, try to leave the impression again that I was talking about before. But I don't really think that there's going to be much of a difference from now. Like, the coaches and the teams, like, they have like a pretty damn good idea of, like, okay, starting night, this guy's playing, this guy's not, and this guy's not. So having, like, crazy leave a mark moments of, like, these, like, fights and stuff like that, I don't think it would have been necessary, and nothing happened. So that was fun to see. But again, good pace to the game, like, in terms of the intensity, and, like, you see that these guys are not going to like each other. And both teams are actually bigger than I expected, in the sense that there was, like, a lot more hits. It was just like a lot more, like, you know what I mean? Like they had that, like, I don't like you. And, like, the other person on the other side of that is like, yeah, me neither. This one it's gonna be like a dogfight this season, and I'm excited for it because I find for once the Atlantic Division, and more notably the Eastern Conference, is growing in terms of size, but also skill. Like, they're not sacrificing skill for size. Like, they're getting they have the both ends of the spectrum, if you want to call it. Like, they have the talent, they have the size, and it's like not affecting each other. Like, it's not like back in the day where you used to have like a fourth liner who quite literally skated worse than like my nana. Like, you actually have guys, like, if you're on the team, it's because like you could, regardless of who you are, like, you're capable of scoring an NHL goal and like actually being a part of the play, which is a nice thing to see. But so a lot more of that throughout the the first period. Yeah, well, second period as well, but I meant the third game. On the Leafs, come out in this one, once again, find themselves with a 3-1 lead. And very obviously, going back to our main form, I can already see people leaving like a little review or comment on this episode saying, hey, it was 3-1. And to you who are about to write that, feel free, by the way, like, have fun. I don't blame you at all. But yeah, I'm aware. And by you saying it's 3-1, you could be talking about the time the Leafs blew the 3-1 series lead to you guys, or the time, like literally yesterday, that we blew the 3-1 lead in the game to you guys. Because whether it's the season, the playoffs, or the preseason, there has to be one game. Like, Leaf fans, you're going to get what I'm about to say. There has to just be one moment where like we just have to be Leafy. You know what I mean? It's like, we're not the Leafs if we don't do shit like that. Like, it's in our nature. We lose to Zamboni drivers who work for us and sub in for the other team and manage a way to lose that. We blow completely obnoxiously large leads with ridiculously low amount of time left. Like, I literally made a video about this on my TikTok, talking about how like the collapses that the Leafs have had over the past 10 years. And I am not joking. I don't even need to think. Like, right now, I can name it off the bat. Leafs blew a 5-1 lead to the Senators. They blew and they actually lost that game in overtime. A few years back in the Matthews Laine like draft year, where like they played their first season, Leafs blew a 4-0 lead to the Jets. And obviously Laine scored that to win the game for the Jets. Like, isn't that a damn Leafy way to lose? Then there's the David Ayers. And there's a lot. And the point is, this one just adds on to that. Leafs blow, once again, a 3-1 lead with under 10 minutes to go. And thank God this was not the first game of the season. And I swear, if this is going to be the result of the first game of the season, you're going to see me a lot less smiley face and a lot more screaming into the camera, where like headphone users are going to have to be careful. So I really hope, for both our sakes, for like my mental sanity and for you listening, that the Leafs actually don't lay an egg in a game that they have full control of and find a way to let it slip between their fingers, because they tend to do that, unfortunately, too much. It happens. It's the preseason. Again, it doesn't matter, so I'm not going to get worked up over it. But it was still like, I was with my buddies watching this game, and I'm just like I'm going to have to hear him. I'm going to have to go and hear my coworkers at work tomorrow tell me about how the Leafs blew. It's like, dude, I know, and I can't explain it. And I don't know why, when the Leafs don't have their full NHL roster, that they're capable of holding a 3-1 lead. And then when they're starting like $40 million on one line, we blow the 3-1 lead. I can't explain it to you. No one can. But the Leafs end up losing the third game of this mini preseason series. They end up losing it 5-4 in overtime. And again, I started talking about the first game. I mentioned this guy, Josh Anderson, dude. Like, I swear, if you can sign players, all right, and this is actually like, this might be an interesting discussion, to be frank. What is it with this guy? And there's so many other players you can probably look at this with. Like, there's players who are like designated team killers, like in the sense that like, like the Josh Anderson, like where it's like, this guy is normally average. Like, he's got talent, but like, it's not that great. Doesn't really stand out. But when Timmy plays the Bruins, oh, you know, he's just going to gear up into a juggernaut and just rip. He's going to score. He's going to get an assist. He'll get into a fight. He might get multiple points. He'll probably end up one of the stars of the game. On another night, he won't. But when he's against the Bruins, he's going to do it. Or when he's playing the Canucks, oh, I know to expect this guy to absolutely kill us. And Josh Anderson's just that guy on the Habs. He will just find a way. he definitely hates the Leafs like more than anyone on the Habs at least, because he just, again, for a preseason game, like, this guy's giving it his damn all. He sniped it like, oh, filthy snipe. And the reaction this guy had, like, celebrating it, like, good on you. Trust me, I would be doing the same thing if I tied a hockey game. I don't care that it's preseason. Tying a game, even like at the ODR, when you're at the rink with the boys or your family or whatever, and like you tie like a little squad game you're having, yeah, it's hype. Can you imagine doing that in front of fans? And the fans were loud the last night. They were loud. Like, the fans have always been loud in Leafs and Habs games. They were loud last night for a game that means absolutely nothing. So yeah, feel good about yourself. But my question to you is, Josh Anderson, if you're ever going to listen to this video, why do you hate us so much? And how is it that every time you play us, I know you're going to end up on a score sheet, and I know when I watch you play against another team, I am not even going to know that you're on the team that night. I really have to know. Like, I genuinely need to know these things, because, oh my God, it's frustrating. It is frustrating. Where, to be fair, there are players like on the Leafs who are like other like team killers. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I know Matthews had, a lot of people might actually get pissed off on this one, but I think it's fair to say Austin Matthews had Carey Price's number, not in the playoffs. I'm not talking about the playoffs. I probably just screwed myself in this one, but regardless, like, there can definitely be examples made of like certain types of players like playing better against certain teams and worse against others. But Josh Anderson is just one that it's been like 3 years now that I'm just like, this guy's an absolute tool bag against any other team, but when he plays against us, forget it. Turning into Sidney Crosby, like, yeah, let's dominate. Let me just absolutely carry this team, and then forget that I play for them the next one. It's just, I guarantee it. Watch the next Habs game. I'm telling you. Watch the next Habs game and let me know how useful Josh Anderson is. Anyways, that was just a little take for talking about the game. So, Leafs and Habs rivalry, as I've mentioned throughout this episode, it's something that's been there for like years and years and years. Like, matter of fact, to be completely honest with you, Toronto, like, Leafs and the Habs rivalry spans longer than, almost easily longer than, half the teams in the NHL have even existed for. Like, easily, probably more, definitely more. I mean, we're an original six, and we're like one of the original six. So definitely a lot of history there. And with history, obviously, comes a lot more, like, when you have a history this long, there's going to be feelings that you start to attach to it. Like, when there's something new, it's kind of like look at the Kraken, right? Kraken coming to the league, they don't have a rival. Everyone's just like, oh, the Kraken are doing great. Good for them. Like, it's good to see a new team kind of making their mark in the league. But it's like, no one's hating on the Kraken. I don't know. I'm personally not. Vegas, that's another story. I just kind of salty about the fact that a team entered the league 5 years ago and has way more playoff success than the Leafs have. But it's just a joke. Like, I mean, like, Leaf fans, you get it. It's just the universe playing games with us. It's like, at this point. Anyways, but back to what I was saying before, like, talking about like a rivalry, like a team like the Leafs and the Habs, and like you see it across all of their sports as well. The oldest teams tend to have the greatest stories, and like you can span from stories from like the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, wherever it is, whenever it is. There's always going to be a history. So that is why even in a game that means absolutely nothing, like this preseason game, the crowd was absolutely still electrifying, and there was still pushing and shoving and like banter amongst the players, like probably like shit talking each other and like complaining and this, that, and the other thing. And it's just because of the nature of the game. The only reason like these guys don't like each other, again, is because of all the history. Like, the Leafs are not going to play with this level of grit versus someone like, or not level of grit, but like level of like bad taste in your mouth, like when they play Habs and the Bruins, compared to when they play like the Arizona Coyotes and the Minnesota Wild. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it'll be a lot more like structured game. Whereas like in these games, like, you expect things to come from it. Like, you expect the tenacity, especially like, like the Leafs. Like, I don't know about you guys, like talking directly to Leaf players. I'm still really, Matter of fact, I still have to deal with the repercussions of your shitty performance playoff collapse against the Habs a couple years ago. I still deal with those repercussions. People are still reminding me, even though I didn't forget, that it was 3-1. I know it was 3-1, just the same way this game was 3-1 and we blew it, and I'm probably going to hear about it for the next 5 months unless Toronto does the exact same back to Montreal so we can like kind of cancel it out. So it's the beauty of the game. Rivalries, I find, is something that it brings meaning to the game. You know what I mean? Like it creates the stories, and at the end of the day, I respect Hab fans, and I'm sure the Hab fans also respect Leaf fans. But while we're in, well, actually, that's arguable. Like between the two, like I'm sure there's some who, for some reason, genuinely have like a hatred towards the other person. Like I don't hate I don't hate a Habs fan. Like I don't wish you bad in life. Like I hope you succeed. I hope you can start your own business. I hope you bring generational wealth to your family and all that. I hope your entire family's healthy and all that. But like, I hate the team you cheer for, only because I'm a Leafs fan. Like as a Leafs fan, there's this thing called the triangle of hate in the NHL. To some new fans listening, Montreal, Toronto, Boston. If you're a Leafs fan, you hate the Bruins and Habs. If you're a Habs fan, you hate the Bruins and Leafs. And if you're a Bruins fan, you hate the Leafs and the Habs. It's the triangle of hatred. And we respect each other in terms of, like cheering for the team, but it's like, I kind of hope that your team sucks and causes you like that little bit of pain and that little, well, for Leaf fans, a lot of it, but like that level of pain where it's like, I enjoy seeing you suffer. You know what I mean? But in terms of sports, like I don't mean like real world suffering. Like we're all humans at the end of the day. Like it's just all an entertainment. But you do like to, like I like to see the Habs lose. I like to watch the Bruins lose. It's like, Boston lost to like Minnesota. Nice. All right, let me go have like my glass of milk or whatever, have a coffee. It just kind of puts that little smile on your face. The same way if like Hab fans sees like, oh, the Leafs lost 6-1. All right, today's going to be a good Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. So I find that's what like makes the game, like makes the NHL and the sports and any kind of sports, to be honest, like meaningful. It's at the end of the day, like I respect all the Hab fans. I respect all the Bruins fans. I just don't like the team you decided to cheer for, and that's just a matter of fact. And the same way you don't like the team I cheer for, but like hopefully you can respect me as like a human being. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch on in terms of the Leafs and the Habs. Something else I wanted to get to outside of the Leafs and Habs, because that is like the only thing I talk about. And I could talk about this for like 75,000 hours in a row, and I won't stop. And I'm probably going to repeat myself like I probably have in this episode. So I wanted to kind of move on to another topic, which was a contract signing in the NHL. Trevor Zegras. Trevor Zegras has signed a 3-year contract, reportedly $5.75 million AAV. So looking at something like 16 point something million dollars over these next 3 years. Initially, my first reaction was like, damn, that's a good contract. And in terms, like you look at the money value, right? And you see like Zegras, like I think is a kind of player, like he's bringing change to the game. Like he's bringing like that excitement. He's bringing like the younger generation, like he's kind of like grabbing their attention and being like, guys, like you guys can do this, like practice enough, like try new things, be yourself on the ice. Like he's kind of given that vibe. So I think like he can be a pretty impactful player to help grow the game. So when I saw the contract, I was like, damn, like I've seen some other contracts of players who haven't exactly proven a whole lot more than Zegras, like fetching $7-8 million. And why is this guy getting so little? I'm like, damn, the Ducks did good. And then my buddy kind of next to me, he might be watching this, and shout out to you. He's like, yeah, like it's good now, but the Ducks, excuse my language, kind of fucked themselves. Because once his contract is up, this guy is going to get paid. He's kind of like pulling off, and it's a sort of pattern you've noticed since like players like Matthews and stuff like have walked into the league, where it's like no longer these like right after your ELC, you're signing an 8-year deal. Some players still do it. Like you saw Caulfield actually that I think it was 8 years, 7.8 whatever million. But like again, you're locking up 7.8 something million for 8 years. Zegras is getting under 6, and I think he could definitely turn into a player who can like even possibly see like the 8, 9, 10 million. I could see it. Like I'm not saying he is that now, but like I can definitely see it. So taking that 3-year deal, like it kind of, I think, really benefits the Ducks right now. It's kind of like going for the immediate pleasure and I'll deal with the repercussions later kind of vibe. That's what this contract gives me, in the sense that this is really going to benefit the Ducks over the next 3 seasons. Like, 5.75 million for like your probable number one center. I'm comfortable saying that. Probably your number one center for like a long period of time, hopefully for them. So like getting him under 6 million is like huge. Like now you can work around that. You can get players around him. The thing is, and what my buddy told me is, once this contract is up, this guy's going to want a lot more. So the fact that you sacrificed you sacrificed years on his contract to save a few million now, it may look good. I don't know if it actually is good for this team, especially with all of the young players they got coming up. They got McTavish. They have they had the second overall pick in the draft this year, and I saw their draftee. Oh my god, he's a tall dude. He's like a big guy. I forget his name off the top of my head, but they have him. They have Drysdale. They have a lot of players that they're gonna have to be re-signing, and just about that, like, if they sign all these types of players to like these 3-year deals, in 3 years, all their contracts are gonna come up, and it's gonna be an expensive re-signing period for them, and they might have to let go of some of these players. Whereas if they sign them to the long term and were willing to give a little more, you might have harmed yourself now while your team is not even at that level yet. So it doesn't really matter, to be honest. So that when your team is actually starting to get good, you don't even have to worry about the contract situation had you signed a long-term deal. Now, I don't know what both parties wanted to do. I don't know if Zegras is even interested in a long-term deal, but like the Ducks are paying like, what is it? Was it Ratko Gudas? Something like 4 million, and like Zegras is getting less than 2 million more than him. Like that to me is nuts. So like, I don't know. Maybe Zegras like might just dip after this contract. Who knows? But I thought that contract was really interesting, and I think that it's kind of once again leading the charge for this like new wave of like decision making in terms of signing contracts, where like I'm seeing a lot less of these like 8-year deals and a lot more of these like 3 to 4 kind of, I forget what they're called, but like these kind of contracts where it's like, I'll stick with you for a bit, but like if I'm doing really good, like this decision is really going to get me paid, in the sense that if over these next 3 years, like I can show you that I'm like really the player I know I could be, you guys are going to pay me once this contract is up. Like you're going to pay me, and there ain't going to be negotiating. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Something I did want to end the this episode on was something wholesome. It's nothing too crazy. But last night, the same night that the Leafs blew that 3-1 lead, yes, I know it was 3-1. There was another game in the league, and it was the Penguins versus the Senators. And you're probably like, who cares? Nothing to do with the game I'm about to talk about. This one, though, was in Halifax. And you're probably like, okay. Well, it was in Crosby's hometown. I don't know. It wasn't exactly the hometown. It was, anyways, the game was in Halifax. And there was a huge crowd that showed up to watch this game. And basically all for Sidney Crosby. And I really just wanted to talk about this kind of because I just wanted to admire the greatness of Sidney Crosby. Like, this guy walked into the league and has adapted through, like, the NHL has gone through changes since like 2005 when he entered the league up until 2023, 18 years later. Like, the league has seen some change, and Crosby has been consistently evolving, adjusting to the game, and staying just as prevalent in the games themselves. And like, I think that is an underrated talent that this guy has that not enough people show love to. Like, sure, there's players who might have more goals than him this year or more assists, but it's like, can you do that over an 18-year span and stay relevant throughout all of the, like, this guy adapted. And it's kind of like human nature too. Like, adapting is the mode of survival. And like, this guy he did exactly that. And so I think the standing ovation he got last night, although their team got shut out by the Sens, which is like, they lost 3-0. But like, again, it's the preseason. Who cares? I thought it was really fun to see like all those people show up for the game, like both teams standing up on the boards, tapping the bench, just like you got to recognize greatness. Like, I don't care if you like Crosby, if you don't care about Crosby, or if you hate him, whatever. I don't see why you would hate him, but if you do, that was just really nice to see for the game. And I'm gonna be so sad when this guy leaves, man. Like, if you think about it, I've been watching hockey now for about like 18 to 20-ish years, and Crosby and Ovi have been there the whole stretch. Like, the entire path, these two guys have been there, and like players like that. And just to think that like the Crosby era might be coming to an end soon, I don't think it's like that soon, but like it is something people are starting to talk about, and it just makes me like sad. It's just because like I don't care about the Penguins. Matter of fact, I kind of dislike the Penguins, well, more because of Dubas, but whatever. Let's keep this about the Crosby. I just love Crosby. I love what he's done for the game. I love how he was able to grow the game. Like, he got me personally into it. I can't imagine the amount of people he brought to the game himself. So like, I think he really deserves to have moments like this, because he should absolutely be recognized for all of the things he has brought and done for the NHL. And I truly thought it was like absolutely spectacular. So Sidney Crosby, if you're ever watching this podcast, which you might not, but if it somehow ends up to you, congratulations, my man. You are truly one of the greatest of all time. You are truly one of the biggest and greatest GOATs of the NHL, in my opinion. And he should absolutely be in the conversation of being one of the greatest of all time. Like, again, and I think, forget the points, forget like the accolades. First of all, this guy's won several Stanley Cups. He's won the juniors. He's won gold medals. Like, this guy has won it in every single category. And he is always talked, like, when that team wins that he's a part of, he is always one of, if not the main reason they win it. So Sidney Crosby, my man, hats off to you, from a Leafs fan to yourself, to a Canadian boy, from a Canadian boy to a Canadian boy. Thank you so much for everything you do, dude. Like, absolutely incredible hockey player. Absolutely. He sounds like a pretty nice human too. I've never met the guy. I would love to. But for everything this guy's done for a game, it's absolutely incredible. So seeing that standing ovation, I don't know. I just thought it was a little wholesome moment to get your Tuesday started today, that you would hear about that. But anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of this episode. I just want to say once again, thank you guys so much. To those of you listening right now, if you made it this far, if you haven't already, it would be really, really appreciated if you can just drop a subscribe, drop a like, leave a comment. I really want to hear the feedback you guys have. Feel free to reach out to me. I like answering all of the comments. I love hearing the feedback from you guys, wanting to know what you guys think about it, what you would like for me to talk about in the future episodes. As you know, the season is very, very few days away now. So be expecting a Leafs season preview in one of the upcoming episodes. But guys, that is going to be it for this podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you hit the subscribe, drop a like, show your boys some love. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll see you in the next one. Producer, let's roll this one out. I'll see you next time. Peace out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with That Leafs Fan on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.